Are you thinking about buying a condo in Halifax? Well, if you are, then you need to make sure you have these five essential things that you must know before buying a condo in Halifax so you can avoid costly mistakes and buy your new home or vacation property with confidence. And like always, I am joined by Alex Lavender, one of Halifax's top mortgage brokers. And Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mark. How about yourself?
Doing very well. So, Alex, talk to me about condos in Halifax. Really, what is the main condo market look like in Halifax right now?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty steady for the most part. Halifax is one of those cities where there's not too many condos, that's for sure. You go to places like Toronto and it's like a heavy percentage of it is condos just because there's, so much downtown development, right? And here we still do have lots of space. So a lot of the buildings that you see going up are mostly rental buildings for the most part. So only a handful of them are condo buildings. Um, So most of these condos that are going up are in the downtown core. And I'd say, we have seen a bit more development over the last little bit than we've seen previously. So there's definitely more condos starting to hit the market.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think what we want to go over is like, let's dive right into it. And our first thing that you need to know before you buy a condo, which is the financial foundation. Obviously, as a mortgage broker, you have a lot of experience in this. So please help people out. What should they understand about their finances when it comes to buying a condo in Halifax?
For sure. So, unlike a traditional home where you maintain all of the outside structure and, your yard and everything like that, with a condo, essentially the whole condo group takes care of the whole entire building itself. So, there are condo fees that contribute to this, but the biggest thing is when you buy a condo, you need to look at the reserve fund and the reserve study and all of the accompanying documents that go with it, financials as well. Um, the big thing is the condo fees are supporting those costs of the building. And these reserve funds essentially are set aside pools of money to cover the costs of the building as certain projects or maintenance comes up. So one of the big things is seeing what the future plan is for scheduled improvements, because essentially if they think, well, they're going to have it all laid out in a timeline. When you see a reserve study, you kind of start to understand it, but they project, 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, the maintenance that's going to be done on the condo. And some of these require special levy, and some of these are going to be an increase in condo fees. So these are the scheduled things that they expect. So these could be things like roof needs to be replaced. It's $1 million. And they're going to say, hey, there's a special levy of $5,000 per condo that's going to be estimated in year 10. These are important things to know because, there could be one coming up very soon that you're going to have to pay for, or they could be raising condo fees significantly. The kind of scary thing with a condo is when something happens unexpectedly, because then you can see either a surprise levy or a surprise jump in condo fees um, out of nowhere. But, obviously, typically speaking, I guess, the newer the condo building, the less likely it is to happen. The older one, the more likely there is that repairs may need to occur.
And when you talk about condo fees, is there anything not included in condo fees? Like, what about property taxes and utilities? Are those extra or are those wrapped into those condo fees?
It's a great question. Property taxes are not included. And then things like utilities are definitely case by case. I mean, some condo buildings they will cover heat. Um, so, a lot of your utilities like electricity, maybe specific heat that's like right in your unit, like any electric heaters and stuff like that, and internet, those are typically not going to be covered by the condo. But things like water, sometimes heat, and some costs associated with parking, if you own a parking space, those will typically be covered in your condo fees.
Got it. And in terms of down payment required for a condo, is it the same as a home? Is there anything different about that?
Yeah, it's the same as a home. So
Okay.
there's really no changes there.
And when someone's starting to shop around for a condo, should they get a mortgage like pre-approval beforehand?
I think it's always important to get a mortgage pre-approval, whether you're buying a house or a condo, doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're qualified for what you can buy. And also, beyond making sure that you're qualified to be able to buy it, make sure that it's within your affordability. So I think a pre-approval is even a bit more important with a condo because a lot of the times people take the condo fee out of their calculation of monthly expenses. So, for instance, if you had a house and a condo that were both $400,000 that you're looking to put 5% down on, the person that has the condo is actually going to have a higher monthly obligation because they have to factor in that condo fee as well. So sometimes when that's not budgeted for, um, it can kind of skew the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we kind of already talked about our second point that you need to know before buying a condo, which is taking a deep dive into the condo corporation's financials. So my question on this is this something that like is given to someone looking to buy a condo, like the what their have reserve fund is? Like, do people get this information up front or do they have to go digging for it?
So when you make an offer, if you're using a real estate agent, realtor, they should be obtaining these documents for you. Uh, it's done with the realtor, so I don't see it quite as often as to where it occurs in the process. But I'm almost positive after you make an offer, you get it. It might be possible to have them up front before you even make an offer. I'm not sure, but you definitely require them. If you don't personally want to see them, the lawyer is going to require a copy of them before closing in all the instances that I've seen. And it's good practice to have it. It can be a little overwhelming for a first time home buyer to get this package. I've had clients that have bought condos and are like, I'm a little bit stressed and overwhelmed by the 60-page document that I just went through and what it means and, all of this and that. Like, there's maintenance costs with a home. They're just not laid out in a package, right? People are like, oh, it's going to cost me $5,000 in 20 years for this special levy for the roof. It's like, well, it's going to cost you $15,000 probably in 20 years for the roof on your home if you bought a home. It's all relative. So, I think a lot of the times real estate agents will do a good job of going through that with their clients and anyone. If the key is when you're buying a condo that you want to find a knowledgeable real estate agent that knows how to transact in condos because they're going to be able to go through this with you in detail and explain what a lot of these things mean. Um, Whereas someone new, I mean, might be learning it with you, right? And that's not where you want to be.
And let's talk about locations of condos in the Halifax area. Obviously, you said there's not a ton of condos in Halifax HRM, but what are those best areas for condo living? Is it downtown? Are there any in Bedford? What about Dartmouth?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to say the highest percentage of them is in the core downtown area, and I feel like most of the time that's where you find condos. Condo is giving someone the opportunity to live as close to the action as possible, where houses may not even exist. So most of the condos around here are right downtown. The new developments that we're seeing going up, a lot of those are right downtown. There are condos as well in Bedford, Dartmouth, all around the core HRM area. Uh, I can't say with certainty, but from my understanding, or at least I haven't seen any, there's really no condos out in any other smaller communities like Truro, Windsor, maybe in Bridgewater, there might be the odd one. And condo is kind of a little bit of a loose term when you think about it. I think a lot of the time when we think condo, we think large apartment tower. And that's just kind of what I was referencing there. Condo comes in many shapes and sizes. Condo could be, in theory, a townhouse, row housing with, 4, 8 houses connected that have shared condo fees. So not your typical apartment building, but still, it's considered on condo land. So outside the city, you start to see more of that type of condo where, it's a small, maybe a 4 unit even just not your traditional what we think of condo apartment building style. Actually, in some of the cottage communities as well, outside of the city, there's cottage lands, essentially where you can have a cottage on condo land where they will take care of all the, amenities of, shoveling the snow and everything like that. So, yeah, it does come in many shapes and sizes, but your traditional condo tower, those are going to be in the core city area here.
Yeah, and when you say that, it reminds me of the Canadian snowbirds that go down to Florida or like Arizona, and they have those like communal living places that you have condo fees on, even though it's a townhome or it's a small bungalow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good distinction to make is that condos are not just these like high-rise buildings and they can exist in other forms. It sounds like it's more of like the business structure more so than like the actual building unit.
Yeah, like share it anytime I think that you have some sort of like shared resources or someone's taking care of something, that's when you start to get like the condo aspect of it. Like, like in these condo communities, the cottage communities, they're clearing the land and or sorry, they're clearing the roadways and stuff like that, and I assume garbage and stuff like that. And there's you can go on and on because there's so many different ways that it's structured. But I think at the end of the day, to summarize it, it's mostly whenever you have a shared area that everyone is contributing to, or you're having some sort of service that's being applied to the property.
Yeah, and that's a good point to make, right? It's a shared area, so it's shared expenses. And
Hmm.
like a home, yeah, might not have as many monthly expenses as a condo unit might have, but then you get hit with that big roof bill when it comes due, or if some foundation leak happens, like that comes all on you as opposed to being like split up between everybody who's in the condo. So really, you're right, it really does depend on what you're looking for. And on that sort of topic, that brings me to point number four that you need to evaluate before you buy a condo is looking at the condo rules and the bylaws that might affect your condo or your lifestyle that you're looking at. So specifically, I'm talking pet policies, amenities, and the big hot topic of today, which is Airbnb rules in condos in Halifax. So Alex, let's start with Airbnb. Where are we at with Airbnb in Halifax? Obviously, this is changing all the time, but where are we at right now today with Airbnb in your condo unit in Halifax?
That's a great question. I mean, I think from my understanding, because there's a little bit of a loophole where it says essentially that it can be in like a more commercial area that you can do Airbnbs, but if you're generally stating the facts, it's you can only rent out your owner occupied home. So that means that with a condo, you're not going to have any sort of like income suite in your home because it's a condo. Um, so essentially, if you go away on vacation, you can rent out your condo. I have seen that there's this one loop for the commercial areas that allow condos to kind of operate. And I don't know if that's building specific or if that is maybe a loophole where you can have some of these in a condo building. But that might be the only other way.
And I believe the city of Halifax charges a 3% tax that you have to send monthly to the city if you're running an Airbnb. So that's another thing that you need to think about as well if you are looking at your condo in Halifax as like an investment property through Airbnb. So then what about pet policies and amenities? Like, are condos in Halifax usually friendly to bringing dogs? And do they usually have things like a gym or a pool? What have you seen out there?
It varies. Yeah, it's really property specific. I mean, the policies of owning a condo are going to be more restrictive than owning a home, generally speaking, most of the time. Just because, you are in closer quarters with other people, and you have to have that shared the well-being of the whole unit. There are certain things where there are restrictions on renovations at times, restrictions on maybe certain appliances that can go in there, and it's all listed there, so it is going to be more restrictive. I wouldn't be surprised if they say like no water beds for obvious reasons. You probably can't have your own cold plunge in there or something, but they're trying to protect the building as a whole. Um, the list can kind of go on and on and on. At the end of the day, yeah, some of them are going to have some pet policies for sure, which is going to be different than, if you own a home, and some of them will have amenities. Typically, the more amenities it has, the higher your condo fees are going to be because those amenities need to be supported, whether it's staff to man them or additional costs. So typically the more amenities it has with the less units, the more of the cost is carried by everyone else. So things like, pools, hot tubs, even just having the space for like, let's say a bowling alley, for example, that's going to be an additional cost too, because that's additional square footage of the building that's, not generating condo fees.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that brings me to point number five that you need to know before you buy a condo in Halifax, which is getting a real estate agent who knows condos. And specifically, Alex, are there real estate agents who specialize in condos, or do they just do kind of everything in Halifax, considering it is a smaller market than people might be used to in like a GTA?
Yeah, I think that for the most part, real estate agents here are a little bit diversified. I mean, you've got condos and homes. There are a couple real estate agents that may be more knowledgeable in condos because some real estate agents will have connections with developers to sell a block or a good portion of the condos in that building. So not only will they be, this is more for new construction. Well, this is really just for new construction. Um, they're definitely going to be very well versed on what's going on in that building specifically. But that also does give them a high level of condo knowledge if, especially if the developers ask them to sell all the units there. But where condo, I would say, is a small percentage of the housing market here compared to other markets. Most real estate agents, I would say, are diversified into both from what I've seen.
Got it. And I know real estate agents love to say, hey, if prices are going up, you got to buy now. And if prices are going down, well, then that's just a better opportunity to buy now. But I'm not talking to a real estate agent right now. So I can get your honest opinion. What have you seen with house prices in the condo market in Halifax? Are they actually increasing? Are they flatlining? Are they declining? What has been the trend with them? And so, really answering the question, is it a good investment for someone to buy a condo in Halifax?
Yeah, so it's a good question for sure. And I think lately we've seen values kind of moving a little bit sideways for the most part. With condos, there's less condos to change hands. So the metrics are a little bit different than a house. And there's a big gap between the price of an existing condo and the price of a new condo. So the prices do range there. I guess with houses too, an existing home versus a new home, prices do tend to vary quite a bit as well. But I'd say for the most part, it's kind of been moving sideways. A big thing you have to factor in too, if you're banking on a lot of appreciation as your equity strategy in a condo, is the condo fees. So every month you're going to have those condo fees, take that's an expense that you do have to pay on top of your property taxes. I mean, with houses too, right? Like you have maintenance and stuff like that. That you're not just setting aside money typically every month for, and they're just in large lump sums. But that is one thing to kind of keep in mind. I find just again, we're just kind of coming out of a crazy market here over the last 3, 4 years. But speaking before 2020, condo prices they definitely did move sideways a little bit more than houses. They're very slow to increase, and I think that's what we'll see as well. I would say not as much of a swing, a lot more sideways movement, a lot more stability in price than kind of up and down is what we notice.
Thank you so much for that. I love getting the honest answer from a mortgage
Yeah.
broker, someone who actually sees sees what things sell for and how much mortgages people are getting, because obviously that gives us a much more real view of what the condo market's doing in Halifax. So to summarize what we've chatted about here today, um, if you're looking to buy a condo in Halifax, first and foremost, get a pre-approval through a mortgage broker, specifically Alex, because Alex is one of the top mortgage brokers in Halifax. So you can use the link down below this video to get a free pre-approval for your mortgage, use the link down below. Number two, which is understand your financials. That means looking at the condo uh, reserve fee and figuring out how much is it, looking at your condo fees, understanding what's included in your condo fees, what sort of upcoming costs they might be planning already, and really understanding the condo corporation's financials. Number three is looking at the location and understanding that condos come in all shapes and sizes, and finding the one that fits your needs the best is important. And then number four, which is really knowing your condo rules and the bylaws that they have to abide by, and knowing those Airbnb rules, which are changing all the time. And then our last point, which is number five, which is finding a real estate agent who knows the Halifax condo market and might even have those deals that you mentioned, Alex, of getting those in on those specific units that are allocated to one or a few realtors in particular. Anything else you want to add before we sign off here?
No, I think that's great. I think, you know, when it comes down to house versus condo, it's really more of a lifestyle choice than anything. You know, you're either going to gravitate towards a house and the amenities and the fact that you have a yard and this and that, or you're going to gravitate towards a condo. And, you know, a lot of the time it's people have a house for many, many years and they move to a condo later in their life because they want to travel. You know, condo is beautiful if you want to travel and you're a bit older and you want to go away for 6 months. You just essentially lock the door and you come back and it's there. You know, when you leave a house in the wintertime, you know, there's maintenance that's involved. You know, someone has to come check in on the house, not only to take care of the house, but for insurance purposes. Someone's got to shovel it out, you know, all that fun stuff. So, yeah, you know, I think condo really comes down to personal preference at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, Alex. Be sure to subscribe to Alex Lavender on YouTube and like this video and drop a comment if you are considering buying a condo in Halifax.